Moonstar shoves all in. Wow. Wow. $2.5 by Stefan, 3-bet to 500 by Bet2Easy. So he doesn't want to go too big, even deep stacked. That's a good play. That shows awareness. King 7-4 is it's a bit of a blank board. The king is pretty good for both of them. The 7 and the 4 are better for Stefan, and there's not much else going on. So yeah, pretty good board for both. Bet2Easy can see bet quite aggressively here. He goes for third pot minus a bit. Stefan calls. And the turn is a 4. Bet2Easy is going to check this turn a ton because, you know, he's got a lot of hands like 10-9 of clubs that just don't improve. He wants to check, you know, hands like queens that, you know, wanted to get some value but not a whole lot. And the 4 is not that scary, right? I mean, Stefan will call some hands pre-flop by ace-4 suited, maybe offsuit, some hands like 5-4 suited. A couple other 4s, but not that many. So, you know, if the turn were 7, it would already be more scary, right? So, but Bet2Easy will still check a lot, which he does. Stefan bets 2,400 on the turn. I think this is a very poor play. Yeah, this is a very poor play. I'm not going to go into it too much, but he's making Bet2Easy's life very easy. So, yeah, this play is a bit too easy to exploit. No pun intended. Yeah, this is a very poor play. Bet2Easy calls. I don't think against this sizing he necessarily needs many raises. Stefan is basically saying he's got a 4 or better. Maybe a hand like a good king sometimes. The 6 improves 5-3 and 8-5. So if anything, it's a better card for Stefan than for Bet2Easy, but obviously it doesn't do a whole lot. So Stefan goes all in for full pot. I don't think he should have any smaller bets, right? Because he's not saying, well, I bombed it with like king 8 and now I want to go smaller, right? Or like I bombed it with pocket 9s. He's basically saying he's got like a 4 or better, maybe a good king. So, and those hands are good enough to shove all in. Or he's got a hand like 8-5 or 5-3. 7s. King 4 maybe. And Bet2Easy calls. Okay, so Bet2Easy shows up with king 10 suited. The 3-bet is standard. You could check the flop if you want to, depending on your entire strategy, but betting is good. Stefan can raise the flop sometimes with king queen, but calling is fine too. And on the turn, I like the fact that Stefan goes for value here and eventually gets the stack in, but yeah, I think the size is the setup is very poor. So, and Bet2Easy thinks, well, unblock all the floats. Stefan is an aggressive player, you know, I call. So Bet2Easy's play, I would say 8 out of 10. You know, the river is questionable. You know, you could maybe fold that. The flop and the turn, as well as pre-flop, are good. Stefan's play is a 5.5 out of 10. Yeah, I think the turn sizing is not so great. I mean, it could be alright under the right circumstances, but yeah, I don't think it's a fantastic play. Small open raise by Totti. So my range is now a bit wider when he opens that small. I defend. So when he opens that small, especially with the low rake, I can defend a pretty wide range. So this board is obviously extremely good for me, as in I'm going to have, you know, straights and 2 pairs and, you know, pair plus draw hands or whatever. Even my overcards have some okay equity. So he has to be careful here. He cannot go crazy. He checks behind, which is probably a good play with, you know, a decent part of his range. The turn is a 7, which is obviously a good card for me. I'm still going to have more sets, way more straights, way more 2 pairs. You know, he's going to have a lot of overcards. So you can pick a couple of different sizes. You can go third pot, half pot, 3/4 pot. It really depends on how you choose your turn leads. So I just decided to go half pot here, and he calls. So I'm putting him on maybe a hand like queen jack, a flush draw, 2 pair, straight, an occasional set like pocket 7s, maybe like pocket 10s sometimes, some 1 pair hands, an occasional maybe like a fuck you ace king type of hand. But of course that's quite unlikely. River is a 10. So at this point, is, you know, some of my 2 pairs get counterfeit. It's going to be difficult to value bet less than a straight at this point. Maybe I can have a hand like trips to value bet sometimes. So I cannot go too crazy here. I could put in some overbets. You know, I do have a full house advantage, but I can't go absolutely crazy, right? He probably has pocket sevens here every single time. He probably has 10-7 suited quite a bit. You know, he can still have an occasional trap. So yeah, I can be quite aggressive here, but I cannot just put in like a 4K bet very easily, right? I do definitely have the Jack 9 advantage, but even that he can still have because he would bet the flop quite often, but not always. Now he raises small, which is kind of funny, right? Because I don't think this is the most fantastic play. The thing is, when I bet this big, I'm already mostly representing a 9. So now he's representing a 9 but with this sizing, right? So he should either go like basically min raise, or he should go way bigger and say he's got a full house, or maybe Jack 9, let's say. So I don't really like this sizing too much. Unless he's just like, oh, this guy has a bluff for a 10, I'm gonna get him off it. So I remember I had an a9. So I was thinking like, you know, I think if he had a full house, he probably would have raised bigger. He can still have the same hand for value with a 9 when he raises this small. And also he can just have an occasional bluff. Which he did have. So he had ace jack here. Okay. So obviously the pre-flop open is good. On the flop, it's a mix between bet and check, but mostly check. The turn is quite close, right? I mean, he's got a gut shot, he's got 2 overs, and he can use the ace of hearts to bluff the river with. But then again, I am leading on a 4 straight, so quite close. And on the river, I don't really like his play too much. The thing is, when you have a jack in your hand, what is my obvious bluff here, right? Maybe I'll have like 5-3 of hearts sometimes, something like that. But I also have queen jack a lot as a bluff, and he has a jack, so that's not a card you want to have. So I like the heart, I like the creativity, I like that he's being loose, but I think this is a bit too much. So my play, I mean, I don't like rating myself, obviously. This was a very easy play. If I made some kind of sick play, you could give me a high rating, so I would say 8.5. His play is like a 6. You know, it's not an awful play, but it's too loose. If you do this occasionally, it's okay, but it's very easy to be out of line with these types of plays. So Poker Clucker raises a bit larger. Most people tend to raise on the smaller side nowadays. He goes a little bit larger. Moonistar 3-bet's really small. Yeah, not really small. 3x seems okay. I wouldn't really have cold calls in this position. It doesn't work out very well. You know, you don't want people to cold call behind you or squeeze. Your range is often going to be face up. You're defining your range too much. Yeah, it doesn't work for many reasons. Unless, let's say, behind you somebody's like a huge drooler and he's just going to give you all the money, right? Because you're not going to make much money off Poker Clucker here because he's just going to fold a lot or 4-bet you. Yeah, it's not the greatest spot to 3-bet. But if, let's say, if like a guy like Roman were to just squeeze shove 5-4 offsuit like some fish do, and Roman is actually not a fish, he's a professional, then of course there's more value in flatting, you know, hands like aces potentially. Poker Clucker calls, okay. He's going to do that with quite a tight range. So Moonistar decides to bet third pot. This is definitely not a pyro-approved sizing, but it could be all right. Poker Clucker should do a lot of raising here, but he calls this time. The 8 looks scary, but if you think about it, under the gun versus middle position, like how many 8s do both players really have, right? Really not that many. Moonistar checks. Poker Clucker bets small here, so he's saying he's got mostly like something like, you know, pocket 10s, that type of stuff. Pocket jacks, etc. Moonistar shoves all in. Wow. Wow. So he's saying basically, what is he saying he's got, right? He's saying he's got like pocket 9s, or like an 8, or pocket 8s, or maybe hand like aces he checked back, or maybe hand like 6-7 he checked back. So quite an aggressive line here, but it's something that happens sometimes. Okay. I would say both guys played their hand quite badly, to be honest. Poker Clucker should very often 4-bet here. Moonistar should not bet that sizing on the flop. Poker Clucker should almost always check raise this hand. Moonistar should very often bet this turn. And on the river, you know, I don't want to give too much away on the river. There could be many things happening there, but I think this is an okay bet. Moonis's shove is actually all right. He thinks he's blocking 10s, and you know, has diamonds, so that's okay. But yeah, I don't really like either. This is not a remotely power-proof play. Maybe these guys have reads on each other one way or another. It's also a pretty loose call, of course, right? But, you know, he might think that Munoz is just full of shit here. And he was, you know, but he should be sometimes. So how do we rate this play? Munoz's play is like a 6 out of 10, and Poker Clocker's play is also 6 out of 10. I mean, it's not a terrible play, but yeah, as I said, the pre-flop play by Poker Clocker is generally a mistake. Flop, I think, is a mistake by both players. Turn, Munoz should bet a decent amount. And on the river action, I actually don't mind. Munoz thinking, well, he blocks 10s. He doesn't block any floats, so it seems okay.